By the end of 1965, Detroit had built cars so fast that the government finally decided to pay attention. The Pontiac GTO had already proven a mid-sized car with a big engine could sell in enormous numbers. Chevrolet answered with a big block engine so powerful it forced the Corvette into a completely new category. And Chrysler quietly built a handful of drag cars so extreme, with rear wheels physically moved forward on the frame, that they barely resembled the showroom cars they were based on. By November of that year, a young lawyer named Ralph Nader published a book that would change the entire industry's relationship with speed forever. By the end of this countdown, you'll know exactly which 10 American cars earned the right to be called the fastest of 1965, and why this was the year America started genuinely worrying about what Detroit had built. This isn't just a list of quick cars. This is the story of the year Detroit's horsepower war finally collided with public safety. A big block Corvette so powerful Chevrolet's own chief engineer had sworn 2 years earlier it would never happen. A hidden Chevelle Chevrolet refused to advertise on purpose, and altered wheelbase Hemi cars so radical they barely qualified as street legal. Nobody set out to make Detroit dangerous in 1965. It happened anyway. Coming off the runaway success of the 1964 GTO, nearly every manufacturer in Detroit spent 1965 racing to build its own midsize performance answer. Buick introduced the Skylark Grand Sport. Oldsmobile enlarged its 442's engine. Chevrolet finally got its long-awaited big block, the 396, into production, using it to transform both the Corvette and the tiny, secretive batch of Chevelles. Ford, unable to officially sponsor factory racing, handed the Mustang over to Carroll Shelby, who turned it into a genuine SCCA road racing champion. And Chrysler pushed its 426 Hemi even further, building a small run of radically altered drag cars specifically designed to shift weight onto the rear tires for better traction. Then, in November of 1965, Ralph Nader published Unsafe at Any Speed, a book that argued the entire American auto industry had prioritized horsepower and styling over basic passenger safety for a full decade. It would take a few more years for its full impact to reach Detroit's boardrooms, but 1965 was the year the conversation started, right as some of the fastest, most dangerous cars in American history were rolling off the assembly line. Let's start the countdown. Number 10 brings Mercury's compact performance model into a stronger, more capable second generation. The 1965 Comet Cyclone offered Ford's 289 cubic inch V8 as standard equipment, with a larger 390 cubic inch engine available as an option, delivering genuinely strong performance in a lighter, more compact body than Mercury's full-size offerings. The Cyclone also picked up styling and mechanical refinements shared with the broader Comet redesign that year, positioning it as a legitimate, if often overlooked, alternative to the GTO and its rapidly growing list of imitators. It's one of the quieter entries on this list, but an important one, proof that even Ford's more conservative sister division understood exactly which direction the entire industry was suddenly racing toward. Number 9 belongs to the car that made the Shelby GT350 possible in the first place, the ordinary showroom floor Mustang GT, equipped with Ford's high-performance 289. Introduced partway through the Mustang's first model year, the K-Code 289 was factory rated at 271 horsepower, using solid lifters, a higher compression cylinder head, and a 4-barrel carburetor to squeeze genuinely serious performance out of Ford's compact small block V8. Paired with the GT Equipment Group's disc brakes, dual exhaust, and upgraded suspension, a K-Code Mustang GT gave ordinary buyers a taste of genuine performance without needing Carroll Shelby's involvement at all. It's easy to overlook this car sitting in the shadow of its more famous Shelby cousin, but the K-Code Mustang GT was the foundation everything else on Ford's performance ladder that year was built from, including the very next car on this list, Number 8 introduces a brand new nameplate that would go on to define Buick's performance image for the next decade, the Grand Sport. Debuting for 1965 as Buick's direct answer to the Pontiac GTO, the Skylark Grand Sport dropped the familiar 401 cubic inch Wildcat V8, factory rated at 325 horsepower and a massive 445 pound-feet of torque, into Buick's mid-size Skylark body. It was, at the time, one of the largest engines available in any GM intermediate, made possible by the same loophole Pontiac had exploited a year earlier. Buick built the Grand Sport in modest numbers for its debut year, but the formula was immediately clear. Enormous low-end torque, wrapped in Buick's traditionally understated styling, aimed squarely at buyers who wanted GTO-level performance without quite so much attention on the street. Number 7 brings Oldsmobile's mid-size performance package back for its second year, now with a genuinely bigger engine underneath. For 1965, Oldsmobile replaced the original 330 cubic inch V8 with an all-new 400 cubic inch engine, factory rated at 345 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque, a substantial jump over the 310 horsepower package that had debuted mid-year in 1964. The 442 also gained a genuine 4-speed manual and heavy-duty suspension as standard equipment on the performance package, closing much of the gap that had left it trailing the GTO so badly in its rushed first season. Sales improved considerably over the modest 1964 debut, and the 442's reputation for genuinely excellent handling, paired with a real horsepower increase, started to earn it the respect from buyers and road testers that its underpowered first year had been denied. Number 6 brings the letter series Chrysler 300 to the end of its road, the final model year the legendary nameplate would carry a letter at all. The 1965 300L simplified the formula down to a single Carter 4-barrel carburetor, feeding the 413 cubic inch V8, factory rated at 360 horsepower, dropping the last remnants of the exotic ram induction hardware that had defined the series in its earlier years. It remained a genuinely quick, genuinely comfortable full-size performance car, but the letter series itself had run its course. Chrysler would continue building 300 branded cars afterward, but never again with a letter attached, and never again with quite the same aura of exclusivity. It's a fitting closing chapter for one of the cars that had arguably started Detroit's entire horsepower war back in 1955, quietly retiring in the very same year that a completely different formula, the mid-size muscle car, was proving to be the industry's real future. Before this countdown reaches its most extreme entries, it's worth pausing on the moment the entire industry's confidence started to crack. In November of 1965, Ralph Nader published Unsafe at Any Speed, a scathing critique arguing that American automakers had spent a full decade chasing horsepower and styling while treating basic passenger safety as an afterthought. The book specifically targeted the Chevrolet Corvair's handling characteristics, but its broader argument landed squarely on an industry that, as you've already heard in this very countdown, had spent 1965 building bigger engines, lighter bodies, and increasingly extreme drag strip specials with very little federal oversight of any kind. It would take a few more years for Nader's book to translate into real regulation, seatbelt laws, emission standards, and eventually horsepower-crushing insurance surcharges were all still ahead. But 1965 is the year the conversation began, right in the middle of what may have been Detroit's single most extreme model year for raw, unfiltered speed. Number 5 is the strangest, most radical set of cars on this entire list. Chrysler's altered-wheelbase HEMI drag specials, built specifically to move weight exactly where it needed to be. Working with outside contractors, Chrysler engineers physically relocated the front and rear axles on a small handful of Dodge and Plymouth midsize bodies, shifting weight rearward onto the drive tires under hard acceleration. Powered by the race-only A990 426 HEMI, Fitted with aluminum body panels to save additional weight, these cars were built almost exclusively for NHRA and AHRA match racing, competing directly against similarly radical Ford and Mercury factory specials. Only a small handful were ever built, and they represented the absolute outer edge of what a manufacturer could still technically call a production drag car in 1965. Cars so purpose-built for straight-line acceleration that they barely resembled anything a typical buyer could have ordered from a dealership. Number 4 brings the car that started it all back for a second, even more dominant model year. The 1965 GTO carried an updated version of the 389 cubic inch V8, with the standard 4-barrel version now rated at 335 horsepower, and the optional tri-power setup pushed to 360 horsepower, a genuine increase over the 1964 car's already impressive numbers. Total GTO sales more than doubled for 1965, climbing to 75,352 units, with more than 20,000 of those buyers checking the box for the tri-power option. Contemporary road tests crowned the 1965 Tri-Power GTO the quickest quarter-mile car in America that year among mass-produced performance cars, cementing Pontiac's mid-sized formula not just as a passing fad, but as the clear template every other manufacturer on this list was now actively chasing. Number 3 brings Carroll Shelby's transformation of the ordinary Mustang into a genuine SCCA road racing champion. Starting with Ford's K-Code 289 Fastback, Shelby's team fitted an aluminum high-rise intake manifold, a larger Holley 4-barrel carburetor, and tubular headers, raising output from 271 to 306 horsepower. Comprehensive suspension modifications, upgraded brakes, and a stripped roll-caged interior transformed the everyday Mustang into a genuine track weapon. And just 562 GT350s were built for the 1965 model year, along with a tiny handful of even more radical GT350R competition versions, producing well over 350 horsepower. The GT350 swept the 1965 SCCA B Production National Championship, ending Chevrolet's 7-year stranglehold on the class. It proved that Ford's compact new pony car wasn't just a stylish commuter. With the right engineering, it could outhandle and outrun genuine sports cars from Jaguar, Sunbeam, and even Chevrolet's own Corvette. Number 2 might be the single rarest, most deliberately hidden car on this entire list, Chevrolet's Z16 Chevelle, a car the company officially refused to advertise at all. Caught flat-footed by the GTO's runaway 1964 success, Chevrolet's engineers rushed a small test batch of Chevelles fitted with the brand-new 396 cubic-inch turbojet V8, factory-rated at 375 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque, backed exclusively by a Muncie 4-speed manual. An internal Chevrolet memo explicitly called it a special project to create a stir about the new 396 engine, and deliberately limited production to keep the car scarce and mysterious. Just 201 Z16 Chevelles were built for the entire model year, 2 prototypes, 198 production hardtop coupes, and a single one-off convertible built for GM executive Bunky Knudsen. Priced nearly $500 above a comparable GTO convertible and never formally advertised to the public at all, the Z16 quietly ran the quarter-mile in the low 14-second range, becoming the first Chevelle in history to break 100 miles an hour in the quarter-mile straight from the factory. It was a test balloon for the far more famous SS396 that would arrive the following year, and it earned the number 2 spot on this list as one of the rarest, most quietly potent muscle cars Detroit ever built. And that brings us to number 1, the car that proved once and for all that Chevrolet's own chief engineer had been wrong. The 1965 Corvette, equipped with the all-new 396 cubic-inch big block V8. Just 2 years earlier, Corvette chief engineer Zora Arkus Duntov had insisted there would never be a need to increase the Corvette's performance beyond its existing small-block engines. General Motors overruled him. The new L78 396, nicknamed the Turbojet, was factory-rated at 425 horsepower and 415 pounds-feet of torque, fed by a single Holley 4-barrel carburetor on 11-to-1 compression and required a distinctive hood bulge just to clear its own intake system. A 396-equipped Corvette could run 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds, and the quarter-mile in the low 13-second range, numbers that instantly made it the fastest production Corvette Chevrolet had ever built. Just 2,157 Corvettes were factory-equipped with the L78 396 for the entire 1965 model year, making it the only year the Corvette would ever pair this specific big block with the classic Stingray body. It also marked the beginning of the end for Corvette's exotic mechanical fuel injection option, which quietly disappeared after 1965 once buyers realized the cheaper, more powerful big block was the easier way to go. Genuinely revolutionary, genuinely dangerous in the right conditions, and an instant legend among collectors, the 1965 Corvette 396 earned the top spot on this list. So what did all of this actually prove? That by 1965, nearly every manufacturer in Detroit had fully embraced the mid-size muscle car formula the GTO had proven just 1 year earlier. Buick, Oldsmobile, and Chevrolet all built genuine answers within 12 months. That Chevrolet's own engineers were willing to quietly build and hide an entire limited production car just to test the waters before committing to it fully. And that Chrysler's engineers had pushed the horsepower war to such an extreme that they were physically relocating a car's axles just to win a quarter-mile race. It's also the year the rest of the country started to notice. Ralph Nader's book didn't slow Detroit down overnight, but it planted a question that would only grow louder over the next several years. How fast was too fast for an ordinary car with a warranty and a family in the back seat? The muscle car era did not appear out of nowhere in 1964, and it didn't stop growing in 1965 either. It simply started attracting the kind of attention that would eventually help bring it to an end. Which 1965 American car would you bring back if you could only choose one? The record-setting Corvette 396, the secretly hidden Chevelle Z16, or the SCCA champion Shelby GT350? Did your father, your uncle, or a neighbor on your street own one of these cars? Write the name in the comments below.